All right, hello, people. I want to talk about my mom's side today. And, I know I'm supposed to be going back and forth between my mom and my dad, but this is important because I hit on something very serious when I talked about my mom's side of the family. And what I hit on was women who were damaged and abused, and what did that materialize into my life growing up. And what I can honestly say about it is that I understand my grandmother way more than I thought I did. When trauma is passed down from one generation to the next, it has to be understood that hurt people hurt other people. And in my instance, I am no different from the trauma that was passed down from my great grandmother to my grandmother to my mother to me. I remember being a child, probably about 6 or 7 years old, and my grandmother telling me a story about a woman who cleaned houses to take care of her family and to also put a child through college. Okay. In the midst of taking care of that child and putting that child through college, she says the story that the child went off to college and then the child came back from college and the child was at the train station, saw the mother, and the child acted as if the mother didn't exist after the child had poured everything into this, after the mother had poured everything into this child so that this child could be okay. And that resonated with me, not in the moment of the 7-year-old me hearing that, but within the 23-year-old me who started to understand that my grandmother had already created a complex against me, knowing that I was going to rise to be something greater than her. Sad, ain't it? Because it's sad to me that, from an early age, she had already predicted that I would be better than she was. And that when I reached that pinnacle of being great, I have to now start disrespecting him because he will eventually get rid of me. It's attached to a woman who I remember hearing her tell a story of being accepted to Dillard University and really was accepted to Ohio State University. And Ohio State University, back in the day, if we want to be honest about it, they were one of the very few white schools that were accepting black students around the time that she was coming into, her adulthood. People kept her from that opportunity. And she was not able to really leave Texas. She was not able to really do more with herself. And a lot of it was solely based on the fact that people hurt her because they saw that she could rise above them. So instead of, really dealing with her issues, she kind of passed them down to her children and eventually her grandchildren. And since I'm that grandchild that kind of supersedes a lot of my, cousins and my sisters, she felt the need to make me the scapegoat of the family. And I wrestled with this for years. I truly did wrestle with this for years because it's crazy to think that jealousy would ever exist that close in proximity to you being a child. My grandma could not stand the way my mother raised me. Okay? So that's the other part. My mother raised me to be strong, independent, and to also be loving and kind in a very interesting way. My grandma was not a nurturing, kind woman. And I think it's a lot to do with the fact that she came from what she came from. She came from people who did not want to see her rise. And it's really embedded in the slave mentality. It's embedded in women who had to protect their children from the master, to say that their children were dumb and could not elevate to anything greater because they knew they would lose their child. It came from men who knew that they couldn't protect anyone. And so their women had no protection. And the only way to protect everything was to live in dysfunction. I had to learn that dysfunction was the way of my family because it is attached to generational trauma. It is attached to one person having to overcome the obstacles of so many for hundreds of years. And that is the story of my grandmother and my mother and what I had to overcome in this life. And I'm okay with that. I'm okay with it now because I reap the fruits of the benefits later and now. Okay? But going through it, it most definitely wasn't that. I was truly a hurt child. There's a sense of abandonment as a young black man that you go through when you've overcome high school graduation. And let's understand something. High school graduation is not just you getting a diploma in the black community. It is, oh my God, thank you, I didn't get shot. Oh my God, thank you, I don't have children. Oh my God, thank you, I don't have a case. And see, that's what leads to me. So as I've been talking about my family, and as I've been talking about that trauma that leads to me, from a 3-4 generational standpoint, it's me having to understand I could not be my father. It's me understanding I had to learn the mistakes of my mother. It's me having to understand that my grandparents lived a horrible existence in the Jim Crow South. And that generations before them were coming out of slavery. And you just so happen to defy a legacy that is mixed in with black privilege within the black community, but white oppression hurting that black privileged person, and then me going off to the best schools to be better than my circumstances, only to step into a world that would not respect me because I look the way that I do when I have the degrees that I have. So with that being said, I have to forgive my grandmother. I have to thank my mother. And I have to trust in the Most High that my ancestors are pleased with me because I was able to overcome those obstacles that they could not have overcome in their wildest dreams. And whatever I do in this life, and I plan on doing a lot in this life, I must be great at it, unapologetically, and unapologetically black. And for that, I consider myself that bougie black guy on that note. And, you know, I struggled with this for a couple of weeks because when you get into family trauma, it's deep. Because now you get to understand why you do what you do, because they went through what they went through. But you do have the power to overcome those obstacles, and you do have that power to be better than their circumstances and better than your circumstances. But it is all holistic. Never think it's not. And with that, peace.